Episode 7, The Ferryman of the Dead, Karen, Anubis, and Mananan Maclear, keepers of the crossing, takers of silver, masters of mist. When the living grows silent and the night lies heavy over the black water, a faint ripple stirs. No breeze, no bird, no beating heart, only the slow dip of an oar. That is when the ferrymen come. They are the threshold keepers, those who row the soul between worlds, neither wholly of the living nor of the dead. Each in his realm, each bearing the same burden, to carry the departed across the final tide. Charon, the silver-eyed boatman of Styx. In the dim harbours of Hades, beneath the ashen reeds of the Styx, dwells Charon, the Grecian ferryman. He waits in the gloom, gaunt, hollow-cheeked, his eyes glinting like tarnished coins. His oar never rots, though the waters around him are thick with despair. The ancients said no soul may pass his ferry without payment. Thus the obol was placed under the tongue or upon the eyes of the dead, to pay their passage. Those who were buried without coin were doomed to wander the shore for 100 years, calling out to a boatman who would not come. Even the gods paid Charon his due, for his was not a task to mock. He rode kings and beggars alike, unjudging, unmoved, his only loyalty to the current of the underworld itself. In the herb lore of old necromancers, the crossing plants were as sacred as his oar. Asphodel and hellebore, both growing near graves and swamps, were burned to call him or ward him off. Anubis, jackal of the scales. Far from the Hellenic gloom, beneath the hot sands of Egypt, another guardian stands at the threshold. Anubis, the black jackal-headed god, does not ferry souls, he prepares them. He guides them through the labyrinthine duat, ensuring the heart is pure before it faces Osiris's judgment. His fingers are deft, embalmer's hands that bind linen and truth together. He watches as the heart is weighed against the feather of Mart, and if it is light, the soul may pass. If not, the devourer waits. In the smoke of Kiphi incense and the resin of myrrh, his presence is near, sweet, heavy, ancient. Priests whispered that the scent itself guides the soul, like a torch in the desert dark. Herbs of Anubis, myrrh, juniper and cypress, each burned at thresholds and tombs to sanctify the passage. To dream of the jackal was an omen that something in one's life was ending, yet not to fear it, for he guards transitions of all kinds. Mananan Maclear, Lord of the Mist and Western Sea. In the Celtic Isles, where land fades into fog and time folds upon itself, the ferryman wears a crown of waves. Mananan Maclear, son of the sea, Lord of Tinanog, the Isle of the Ever-Young. He sails not through hellish rivers, but through mists between worlds. His coracle of woven silver floats between mortal shore and the other world. He gathers lost souls and wandering sailors, bringing them to rest in lands where no winter comes. Those who have seen him tell of a cloaked figure by the shoreline where the sea hums like memory. He asks no coin, only courage. For the journey is through fog, and one must trust the unseen tide. In the Celtic herb lore, sea lavender and kelp were his offerings, bound in driftwood and cast to sea to honour the souls of the drowned. Sea mist and salt became his incense, cleansing all boundaries between life, death and dream. The shared threshold, 3 faces, 3 waters, black river, golden sand, silver mist, yet the same crossing, the same hush when the oar dips, the same understanding that death is not an end but a voyage. Wherever the soul departs, to Hades, to the Duat, to Tir na Nog, the ferrymen are waiting, each bearing silent compassion, each whispering, all must cross, none cross alone. Episode 8, The Hounds of the Beyond, Cornannon, Garma and Black Shuck, guardians, heralds and hunters of the dying road. When the wind howls across moor and fen, it is not always the weather that speaks. Sometimes it is the hounds, born of shadow and starlight, their paws silent as the grave, their eyes burning with the memory of things not yet dead. Every culture knew them. Every death watch heard them. They are the sentinels of passage, not evil, not merciful, merely inevitable. Cwnannon, the white hounds of the other world. From the mists of Wales come the Cwnannon, spectral hounds of a rowan, lord of the other world. Their coats are pale as moonlight, their ears red as embers, and their howls rise and fall like a morning hymn across the hills. To hear them in the distance was to know that a soul nearby had been chosen. But unlike mortal hounds, the Cwnannon do not kill. They escort. They chase the spirit from the body and drive it through the veil to Anwen, that twilight realm beneath the green earth where feasting never ends. The fearful thought them omens of doom. Yet to the druids they were sacred, for in their hunt lay mercy. No soul wanders lost when the white hounds run. In Celtic herb lore, offerings to calm the coon were made of hawthorn and mugwort, bound with red thread and left at crossroads. Hawthorn guarded the threshold, while mugwort soothed restless spirits. To burn them was to light a lantern for the departing. Garma, the bloodhound of hell. In the far north, beneath mountains of ice and grave mist, the gods of Asgard spoke in hushed tones of Garma, hell's chained hound. He lies before the gates of the dead, dripping with blood, gnawing his fetters, awaiting the world's end. When Ragnarök comes, he will break loose and howl so loud that even Odin's ravens will tremble. Yet until that day, Garma guards the realm of hell, keeping the dead from returning, and the living from entering unbidden. He is the embodiment of the boundary itself, ancient dread, loyalty to his mistress, and the scent of decay upon the snow. In Norse herb magic, Hellebore and yew were burned to honour him, both plants poisonous, both belonging to the underworld's shadow. Warriors carried sprigs of yew into battle, believing Garma's spirit would guide their souls home when the fighting was done. Black Shuck, the death dog of the eastern shores. And in the haunted marshes of England, where the sea fog rolls like a living thing, walks Black Shuck. His name is whispered in taverns and churchyards alike, a monstrous hound with eyes of living fire, larger than any earthly beast. He does not chase, he appears. Sometimes by crossroads, sometimes along the cliffs, sometimes even within church aisles as thunder breaks. To meet his gaze was to feel your own mortality laid bare, yet if you did not run, he harmed you not. For Shuck is both warning and witness, the omen that life is fragile and that death walks among the living unnoticed. In East Anglian folk charms, blackthorn and salt were cast across thresholds to keep him from crossing one's door. The brave would leave offerings of bread and ale on storm nights, for to appease him was to be spared the lightning's strike. Between growl and grace, across the ages, these spectral hounds tread the same dark path. Guides of souls, wardens of borders, beasts that run between breath and silence. They are neither servants of evil nor harbingers of punishment. They are the sound of the unseen crossing, the echo that reminds us. The hunt never ends, only changes its form. Episode 9, The Watchers at the Gate. Valkyries, Fates and Morrigan's raven host, those who choose, weave and feast upon destiny. The night before battle is never truly silent. The air thickens, time slows, the crows gather too many for dawn, and somewhere, beyond mortal sight, the watchers stir. They are not ghosts nor gods, but forces of decision. The hands that pluck a single thread from the tapestry and whisper, "This one shall fall." Valkyries, the choosers of the slain. In the chill air of the north, the Valkyrjor descend, silver-helmed maidens with hair of frost and armour that gleams like stormlight. They ride over battlefields on winds of steel and blood, their horses' hooves striking sparks that become lightning. Each carries a drinking horn for the soul she has claimed, filling it with the warrior's last breath. To die under their gaze was no defeat. It was passage into Valhalla, where the honoured dead rise again to feast, fight, and await Ragnarök. Yet not all chosen by the Valkyries are kings. Sometimes it is the nameless soldier who meets their eyes and dares not flinch. Courage is their only currency. Herbs of the Valkyries, wild thyme for valour, and bog myrtle, burnt on shields to purify fear. Norse women wove these plants into garlands before war, calling upon the maidens of Odin to grant swift death or lasting glory. The Moirai, spinners of fate, far to the south, in the marble shadow of Olympus, 3 women sit at the edge of all things. Clotho spins the thread, Lachesis measures it, Atropos cuts it. They are the Moirai, the Greek fates, and even Zeus himself cannot command their shears. They do not ride nor roar, they decide. Every life, from beggar to god, hangs by their weaving. Each birth begins with a soft hum of the spindle, and every death ends with the whisper of a snipped thread. In ancient Greece, their cults were hidden, half feared, half revered. Offerings of honey and poppy were left at crossroads, symbols of sweetness and sleep. Herbs of the fates, poppy for the dream that numbs pain, flax for the thread of life itself, and asphodel for remembrance. To burn them together was said to open the mind to one's destined path, though few dared to look too long. The Morrigan, Queen of Ravens, fate in flesh. Then comes the Morrigan, the Irish phantom queen, triple-formed, terrible and beautiful. She walks battlefields barefoot, her cloak made of storm clouds, her eyes black with prophecy. Her laughter is the sound of crows tearing flesh. She does not choose the slain, she creates the chaos that makes choosing possible. When she appears, warriors fight harder, knowing she watches. To earn her favour is to burn bright and fast. To fear her is to die before the first blow. She is not merely goddess of death. She is the rhythm of destiny itself. Where she flies, fate unfolds like a storm. Herbs of the Morrigan, rowan for protection, nettle for strength, and hemlock for the voice of prophecy. In old rites, these were steeped in storm water and brushed upon the brow to call her courage or her wrath. Between thread and thunder, the watchers do not mourn. They witness. They keep the balance between chaos and order, valor and fear, life and its shimmering edge. When the Valkyrie's wings beat, when the Fates' shears gleam, when the Morrigan's crows darken the sun, that is the hour of choosing. And every heartbeat, every breath of courage is part of their song. For though their realms are different, they all ask the same question of humankind. When the gate opens, will you walk through it or flee? Episode X, The Headless Riders, Dullahan, The Wild Hunt and the Galloping Dead. When hooves shatter the silent distant drumming, not thunder, not heartbeat, but hooves. They rise from nowhere, out of fog, out of the hollow of night. You do not see them first. You feel them. You feel them. The ground trembles, the lamps falter, and then the riders come. They are the headless ones, the hunters of the storm, the galloping dead, spirits who ride between worlds when the veil thins, chasing the living and the lost alike. Every hoofbeat is a heartbeat stolen from the world of men. The Dullahan, he who rides without a head. From the mist-soaked lanes of Ireland comes the Dullahan, the black rider with no head upon his shoulders. He carries it under his arm, the face grinning, eyes rolling like molten gold, forever scanning the roads for the next name to call. His horse is as black as the grave, his whip made from a human spine. No gate, no lock, no prayer keeps him out. When he stops riding, someone dies. When he speaks a name, that name is over. Yet the Dullahan is not cruel, merely inevitable. He serves the unseen law of endings. Those who see him and live are forever marked by his glance, half in this world, half beyond. In Irish folk wards, crushed fern seed and iron were placed at doorways to keep him from entering. Yarrow was worn at the neck to blur one's mortal scent, so the Dullahan might pass by without calling. The Wild Hunt, riders of the storm across Europe, from the black forests of Germany to the windswept Northlands, people told of the Wild Hunt. A roaring cavalcade of spectral riders tearing through the sky. Their leader changes with the telling. Odin, Herne the Hunter, or King Arthur himself, doomed to ride until doomsday. When the hunt gallops, the air itself screams. They chase souls unburied, oath-breakers and wanderers who linger too close to the borders of the unseen. But to the pure of heart, their passing brings visions, gifts of foresight, or a strange, ecstatic madness. The taste of eternity. You cannot join them by will. You are chosen, snatched mid-step by wind and thunder to ride until dawn breaks or your heart stops from terror. Old cunning folk burned juniper and ash together on storm nights, the smoke said to mask their presence from the hunt's hounds. A sprig of holly was kept near the hearth, the only green that never bends before their passing. The Galloping Dead. Spirits that refuse the grave. In the old legends of the North, not all who die find peace. Some rise, still mounted, still armoured, still restless. They are the Galloping Dead, warriors who fell in disgrace or vengeance unfulfilled. They thunder through the dark moors and battlefields, searching for one final fight or for their severed heads, lost to the earth. Their steeds bleed fire, their swords never dull. They are said to appear before great wars as omens, spectral armies rehearsing the carnage yet to come. In Scandinavian charms, rue and angelica were scattered upon graves to calm such spirits. The living also drank a bitter draught of wormwood and honey to remember mortality yet defy its fear. When the riders pass, the headless, the haunted, the hunting, they are not nightmares, they are reminders. that death is not stillness. It moves, it breathes, it gallops, and sometimes it looks back to see if you will follow. When the wind begins to rise and the dogs grow silent, step indoors, bar the door, and lower your voice. For if you hear hooves where none should be, it may already be too late, because sometimes the Dullahan rides alone, and sometimes he leads the hunt. Episode 11, the Bone Walkers and Corpse Bringers, Draugr, Revenants and Barrow Wights, when the dead refuse their sleep. The wind changes before they rise. Graves sigh, doors swell on their hinges, animals whine and hide, and somewhere beneath the earth bone grinds softly against stone. These are not ghosts, not pale, drifting memories. These are the Bone Walkers, the dead who keep their flesh, their hate, and their hunger. They remember their names. They remember yours. The Draugr, undying guardians of the north. In the sagas of the Vikings, death was not always an end. Those who were buried with greed, vengeance, or unfulfilled oaths sometimes rose as Draugr, blue-skinned corpses swollen with death's frost, heavy as iron, strong as 10 men. They guarded their tombs, their treasures, their ships, and slew any who trespassed. Their gaze alone could paralyze the living. Their stench could kill. To fight a Draugr was to fight the memory of violence itself. Yet they were not mindless. They spoke, they mocked, they judged. Often they rose to punish betrayal, family oath, or theft, before returning to the cold earth on their own terms. In Norse necromancy, mistletoe and fire were used to banish them. Mistletoe for purity, flame for transformation. But to burn the Draugr's body was dangerous. Its smoke carried visions of one's own death. Revenants, the walking punishments of the grave across medieval Europe, there came darker tales. Of the revenant, the returned one. Not summoned by gods nor fate, but by human sin. They rose from graves still clothed in decay, sometimes to avenge, sometimes to torment, sometimes simply because no priest had blessed the soil. In churchyards, they knocked at windows. In fields, they whispered the names of the living. When a village was plagued by night terrors and sickness, it was said a revenant walked among them. They were exhumed, decapitated, and burned. But even ash can whisper. To ward them off, gravekeepers scattered garlic, vervain, and wormwood along parish walls. The smell itself was said to choke the spirit of rot, sealing the dead beneath their proper threshold. Barrow Wight, spirits ancient tombs. In the British Isles, where hills hided the bones of forgotten kings, dwell the Barrow Wights. Spirits bound to their mounds, half spirit, half flesh. They are not born of hatred, but of time. Old sorceries root them to the earth like trees, guardians of treasure, runes, and cursed blades buried in the dark. Travellers who camped upon ancient barrows were said to wake cold, paralysed, their breath stolen by an unseen weight. If you listen close in certain valleys, you can still hear their muffled chant beneath the turf, an ancient hum, older than Christianity, older than iron. To cross a barrow safely, one must carry rowan and salt, the first for the heart, the second for the soul, and never, never speak your true name while walking near such hills. Between flesh and forgetting, the Draugr, the Revenant, the Barrow Wight, all are born from what refuses to fade. Love warped into obsession, pride hardened into hunger. The gods may claim souls, but the earth sometimes keeps them. When night is still and the ground feels restless underfoot, do not call out, for the dead are listening and they are not as far away as you think. Episode 12, The Last Breath. Collectors, banshees, carers, and soul-summoning winds, the whisper that foretells the end. Sometimes death does not arrive with thunder or hoofbeats. Sometimes it comes on a wind, a sigh through the trees, a wail over the hills, a chill that brushes the nape of the neck. And then you know, someone, somewhere, is crossing the final threshold. These are the last breath collectors, spirits who do not strike but announce. They are mourners, heralds, guides. They do not kill, they make death known. Banshees, the Irish wailers of fate. In the valleys and glens of Ireland, women speak in hushed tones of the banshee, Bean Sidhe, woman of the fairies. Clad in grey, her hair streaming like mist, her eyes deep as unplumbed wells, she sings a lament that pierces the soul. Her cry is not cruelty, it is recognition. A life is ending, and the banshee song ensures it is witnessed, honoured, remembered. Some say the closer her wail, the closer the death. Others claim she dances among the living in disguise, laughing to teach that life is fleeting. In old Irish lore, rue and lavender were burned to ease her visitation, rue to soften grief, lavender to honour the departed, a smoke that binds the living to the awareness of the beyond. The Greek spirits of violent death. Far to the south, over sun-baked hills and marble tombs, the keres drift like black wings across battlefields. They hunger for mortal blood, but their purpose is precise, to gather the souls of those torn by violence, famine or sudden fate. Unlike banshees, they delight in the moment of passing, hovering at the edge where life fractures. They are swift, merciless, and inexorable, the cold shadow of mortality itself. Offerings of frankincense and bitter herbs like wormwood were left on fields before battle, a plea that the keres take only those fated and spare the innocent. The smoke was thought to shield soldiers from untimely death, or at the very least prepare them for it. Soul winds, whisperers between worlds. And then there are the winds, the soul-carrying gusts that sweep over cliffs, through forests and across the plains. They gather the dying, brushing the faces of the living with memories of those gone. In some traditions, spirits ride the currents, invisible, shapeless, leaving a faint scent of myrrh, salt, or decaying leaves. These are the uncounted collectors, the ones who cannot be named, only felt. They remind mortals that every ending is a passage, and every passage touches the living world with breath and shiver. Herbs for the soul winds, sage for cleansing, seaweed for guiding the drowned, fennel for courage in the presence of the unseen. Scatter them at thresholds to honour the moving spirits and keep one's own soul steady. The threshold complete the banshees, the keres, the wind-born spirits. They do not chase, they do not fight. They observe, they announce, they usher. They are the quiet moments before the storm, the last gust before the tide, the song before the silence. And as part 2 closes, you realise, whether by oar, hoof, claw or whisper, death is not absent, it is alive, moving through shadows, through fog, through hearts. And those who stand at the threshold, the ferrymen, the hounds, the watchers, the bone walkers, the last breath collectors, are all bound to the same eternal truth. None may pass alone.